This is Robert Tuttle with the Reason Files. There are a few things regarding the current situation with Steven Anderson, his family, and others in the new IFB that I kind of think need to be brought up. And first off is stop doxing the kids, please. Yeah, what they did was way beyond wrong and sinful, but at the end of the day, what the kids did is not illegal. So publishing, posting, or mentioning their names and photos and other identifying information serves no useful purpose whatsoever. All it does is create a permanent public record that people will use against them for the rest of their lives, regardless of whether they repent or not. Their lives are damaged enough, so there's no need to damage them more. And plus, it kind of makes you look like a jerk. So please, no more doxing the kids, any of them. I would also say, and please don't throw any stones at me for saying this, but the kids, as bad as they were, are not the problem. They're actually a symptom of a much larger problem, and that problem is the adults. I keep saying kids for a specific reason. There were at least, if memory serves me correctly, 14 people involved with the chat group, both online and off. There were 5 females and 9 males. 4 of these people I don't know their age. Of the rest, the girls were between 13 and 17 years of age, and the boys were between 13 and 17 years of age as well. All underage minors. But that still leaves 3 adults who participated in that chat group, both online and off. And that is where our focus must be. The kids have all been punished. To what degree, I don't know, other than what Corbin Russell stated, that Steven Anderson beat the expletive out of his boys and, quote, he literally beat his son, unquote. But that's another topic, and it's already been addressed in a different video. Personally, I don't think physical punishment is going to work in this case, simply because of the nature of what they did. I think what they need is some good, solid biblical counseling, and not from anyone at FWBC, to help them understand why what they did is so heinous, and not just don't do it again. Of the adults in the group, 2 18-year-olds and a 21-year-old, one of them, the oldest Anderson son, did not, so far as I could see in all of the chat logs and screenshots and so forth, and I have them all, and then some that have not, as far as I know, been publicly released, he did not partake in any of the grooming or sexting with the minors. However, as an adult, and especially as the son of a pastor, he has an obligation to be a role model to the younger kids. He should have set a good example, and that's all I'll say about him. The other 2 adults, however, that is a very serious matter indeed. One of them, the 21-year-old, was reported to have been off with one or with a or somehow involved with one of the girls. And the comment was made in the parents' chat that they were fornicating. Steven Anderson's response should have been to report it to the authorities and leave it up to them to ascertain the facts surrounding the incident. In fact, as a member of the clergy, Arizona law requires him to do so as a mandated reporter. Anderson's response, however, was to say, well, he's a grown man, he doesn't attend our church anyway, so it has no relevance here. Well, aside from the obvious lie he told, because the man actually does attend FWBC, as does his family, it's not up to Anderson to make the determination regarding the relevance of the situation. In a group chat literally dripping with overt sexual immorality and adults sexting with children, grooming them for an encounter with the adult, any hint of physical intimacy by anyone in that group must be treated as a potential case of child molestation. And speaking of child molestation, that brings up the 3rd adult male in the group. This person made not just repeated, but continual, graphic sexual statements to minor children, both boys and girls. And in some cases, his statements were closer to pornographic grooming of the young girls. And as if that weren't enough, there was at least one statement made in the chat that made my heart sink. And that statement was that this 18-year-old adult male had raped a 13-year-old little girl. The statement was not made in a joking manner. There was no lead-up, no punchline, or anything of that nature. It was simply a straightforward statement in response to another member of the group boasting that he'd beat someone up, and the response was along the lines of, yeah, well, that's impressive, but not as impressive as so-and-so raping a 13-year-old. Well, that, my friends, is evidence of a crime, a horrible crime. At this point, we have seen this same 18-year-old adult male sexting graphically with minor boys and girls, and that alone is a crime. Now we have one of his friends casually mentioning that he also raped a 13-year-old. And what is Anderson's response to the evidence of 2 crimes being dropped in his lap? Sorry, not my kid, not my problem. He lives in another state. He's a good boy, and 18 isn't a magic number. Yeah, well, guess what, Steve? 18 actually is a magic number in the eyes of the law. At 18, at least where you live and where the 18-year-old lives, the day you turn 18, you are legally considered an adult. And any crime you commit as an adult. Again, according to Arizona law, Stephen Anderson was legally required to report this, and again, he chose to ignore the law. Why? Is it because the sex offender we're talking about is the son of one of his good friends? Or is it simply because Stephen Anderson considers himself above the law and not obligated to abide by it? The Reason Files has already produced a video in which you can actually hear Stephen Anderson himself relate a situation where he allegedly came across a toddler wandering around alone in a park, and rather than report it as he is mandated to do, he was more worried about his own image, what people might think of him, more worried about any of that than he was about the safety and life of an innocent baby. So he just walked away and did nothing to protect that baby. Nothing at all. I'll leave a link to that video and also a link to the video that we did exposing more child abuse in the new IFB in the description below. That's about all I really wanted to say at this point in the situation. The focus in all of this should not be on the kids, but on the adults. The adults who are sexting children, the adults who were allegedly raping children, and the adults who knew about it and did absolutely nothing whatsoever. And also the adults who either allowed the kids to learn about the perversion and deviancy they talked about, or taught them about it one way or another. Those adults need to be looked at as well. As I said earlier, the kids are not the problem, so we should all just leave them alone. They are merely the symptom of a much larger problem, a demonic problem that is festering within the new IFB. As my associate Todd, who usually does these videos for me, likes to say, Reason Files out.